What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode. Hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and share the video. Hit the join button and become a member. Why? Well, members get exclusive content. Hit the bell icon on my channel so that you'll receive a notification every time that I drop a video. And you can go and check the video out and leave a like and leave a comment. If you support me, support the Go Up movement, the Stay Free People movement. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please do so. Let's get into it. People have been wanting to know, many people have asked me for some months now, how did Tiny Goofy from 107 Hoover end up on an SNY yard? SNY stands for sensitive needs. It's a PC yard, protective custody. Call it an SNY yard, you call it a PC yard. How did someone like Tiny Goofy, with so much respect, fear, and stature, end up on an SNY yard? Someone who was putting in so much work in the Los Angeles County Jail, and make no mistake about it, on the streets as well. He's one of the ones that was a crossover, if you will. I've alluded to the fact before. I've said many times before, in fact, that oftentimes the respect that you have on the street does not translate or transfer to prison. What you did on the street and who you did it to is your business. Once you get to prison, you got a clean slate and you starting all over. And you have to put in your work there if you want your respect in prison. But Tiny Goofy is one of the rare ones that was, his respect was so prominent on the street that it followed him to prison in the Los Angeles County Jail. And though he was very young in the Los Angeles County Jail, about 19 years old, he was very intelligent, very smart. But Tiny Goofy had a lot of braggadocio, a lot of bravado about him. And sometimes he would try to outsmart the opposition and or the police. As I've alluded to before, he was in there, the Los Angeles County Jail, putting in a lot of work, squabbling anyone and everyone that was in opposition. Hell, he'd even fight some homies. Him and Porky, rest in peace, had got into it on the street. They squabbled up on the street. He'd fight whoever, bro. It really did not matter. And Tiny Goofy was in the Los Angeles County Jail fighting a pretty serious case. I'm not going to get into any of that. I'm also not going to get into who did what. If you know, you know, you figure it out. I'm not naming any names whatsoever in this here situation. But Tiny Goofy, he had crimes as well. I'm not going to get into that either. And he was in the county jail for some time fighting this case, going back and forth. And then he got to trial. He went to trial. And when Tiny Goofy went to trial, he decided, for whatever reason, I don't know, I did not discuss it with him, to get on the stand in his own defense. Now, as most of us know, many attorneys, if not all of them, advise against getting on the stand in your own defense. Oftentimes, you will end up saying something that you regret. The prosecution is skilled. They are skilled attorneys, trained into manipulating your testimony and tripping you up, no matter how smart you think you are. And so oftentimes, your attorney doesn't want you to look a certain way in front of the jury. So they say, man, don't get up there. Don't open yourself up. Don't get a prosecution a chance. Don't get a jury a chance to perhaps see some guilt in you. Let me do the fighting. Tiny Goofy, for whatever reason, he decided, I don't know if his attorney advised against it, more than likely, because again, most of them, if not all, are going to advise against getting on the stand, except for rare occasions where, your attorney feels like the jury needs to hear from you. You need to defend yourself. If you did not unalive your wife, then you need to get up here and look the jury in the eye and tell them that. Certain situations. But for the most part, it's a no-go getting on the stand. But again, Tiny Goofy, he believes oftentimes that he can outsmart the opposition. So whatever conversation he had with himself, it was a cogent one, because he convinced himself to get on the stand, that he can defend himself. In this case, he wasn't his own lawyer, but he wanted to get his side of the story out to the jury. And he felt like whatever the prosecution was going to ask him, he can overcome it, that he can make the prosecution look silly, and that he can make himself probably look, smart, that he can outsmart the jury, the judge, and whoever else. I don't know his thought processes. Again, I'm not inside of his head. But whatever his thought process were, he decided to get on the stand. So he got on the stand, did Tiny Goofy. And when he got on the stand, the prosecutor asked him at some point throughout his testimony, are the Hoovers known for unaliving people? Or do the Hoovers unalive people? You're from Hoover, right? He asked Tiny Goofy. I read the paperwork. I read it with my own two eyes. I read it. I know exactly what happened. Now, this was 10 years or so ago, or a little less, 9 years ago, 8 years ago. So I don't recall exactly everything that I read, but I remember the crux of it, the gist of the situation. The prosecution asked Goofy if the Hoovers were known for unaliving people. He said, you're from Hoover, right? Tiny Goofy admitted that he was indeed a gang member from Hoover. So the prosecution then said, and gangs, they unalive people. Is that right? Doesn't your gang as well unalive people? And Tiny Goofy, he said yes. But Tiny Goofy said it in a way as to be bravado, to braggadocio. My gang is the best. My gang has the most unalivings. This is his attitude. This is his attitude in a Los Angeles County jail. This is why he's defending his gang so fervently. And this is also his attitude here in the courtroom, that Hoover is not to be messed with. That's fine in the Los Angeles County jail when you're fighting some opposition. But in the courtroom with the people who control the fate of your life, it's not necessarily a bright idea to be defending your set when you're on trial for something regarding your set. But Tiny Goofy, the prosecution asked that question. Are the Hoovers known for unaliving people? However he worded it, it was something along those lines. Do the Hoovers unalive people? Are they known for unaliving people? Etc. Tiny Goofy again, he said, well, that's what all gangs do. That's what gang banging is. You unalive one another. That's gang banging. That's the stupidity of gang banging, of course. And that was pretty much it. That was it. The homies, some, once the paperwork came down the pipeline, even right there in the Los Angeles County Jail, some of them, and I won't get into again who said what. I spoke with some came to me and they voiced their opinion. And they was adamant about the fact that Tiny Goofy had went too far. They said that he told, that he snitched on the hood, that he snitched on the gang. And myself and others said, well, how so? How did he snitch? What did he say? Well, he talking about the homies be unaliving people. We do. We do. They know that already. The jury knows that. The prosecution knows that. The judge knows that. Everyone knows what gangs do, what gang banging is. He didn't say anything or confirm anything that they was in the blind about. Some people, they feared Tiny Goofy for good reason. Some people were envious of him, jealous for good reason. Though very young, he had a lot of respect in the hood. He was next in line, the soon-to-be shot caller for sure. Some people had a problem with that. And I personally believe, as do others, that this was part of the motivation. The fear and the envy. Two very powerful emotions. Some, that was not the case. Some people who felt like Tiny Goofy was wrong, they just really genuinely felt that way. It had nothing to do with fear or jealousy. They were just, in their mind, according to their ethics, standing on business. And so, some Hoovers felt like Tiny Goofy should have never said anything about Hoover. That when the prosecution asked him if Hoover's unalive people, he should have either pled the fifth, maybe said no, shouldn't have been on the stand to begin with for this very reason. You're gonna say something that's gonna cross yourself up, either in the case to where you're gonna be found guilty or with your gang. If the case involves your gang, they're gonna ask you questions about this. And this is part of the reason why you should avoid the stand. And so some homies felt like Tiny Goofy had confirmed to the government, the authorities that the Hoovers are a deadly gang that unalives people. I felt like, as did many homies, that it was not snitching because he never said anyone's name. He never said, so-and-so unalive so-and-so. So-and-so sells illegal substances in the hood. Yes, so-and-so committed that robbery. You know, he never said no shit like that. Nothing like, he never pointed anyone out about anything. Now, you can say he pointed the gang out in general, but he was asked the question. And he answered it. He was asked, do gangs unalive people? Do Hoovers unalive people? Now again, I can also understand the other side, if I'm being honest. The homies who are no nonsense, they don't want to hear it. They felt like you shouldn't have said nothing involving Hoover, period. Who do you think you are? No matter who you think you are, you shouldn't have said anything. When asked the question, you should have said no. Or again, pled the fifth or whatever. But not confirm that Hoovers are violent, volatile, vicious people who unalive other people. Some homies felt like this is putting a target on some Hoovers' backs that are locked up trying to come home, etc. So it was really some back and forth amongst some of the homies. Again, some felt like he was wrong, and just as many felt like he was not. But the county jail politics are totally different from prison. Whenever it's something like this, something heavy like this, where a decision like this has to be made, this is always going to be made inside of the prison cells, inside of the prison walls. Nothing's going to happen in the Los Angeles County Jail. So Tiny Goofy got to prison, and people are wondering, well, what's going to happen? Because, again, it's really cut in half. If anything, it's 50-50, or even 70-30 in Tiny Goofy's favor. 75% feel like he didn't do anything wrong, or at least not anything that warrants him being kicked off of the game, him being put into protective custody. And others felt like, no, he was wrong, and there's no two ways about it. And if he is found guilty of snitching, then there's nothing to do but to get him in protective custody. You can't just DP him for snitching. Either he's a snitch or he's not. And if he is, he got to be dealt with the same way any other snitch will be dealt with. That's why you have to be careful when making this decision, when making this call. And when he got to prison, some felt like, again, he good, he should be good, he can stay on the yard, bro. This the homie, this a young homie, this a young rider, this the loc. He didn't do anything wrong. He was just trying to be smart, trying to outsmart the police, outsmart the prosecution, outsmart the damn jury, getting on the stand in his own defense, and ended up saying something that he shouldn't have said, or answering the question that he shouldn't have answered. And others feel like whatever, however he did it, whether he got on the stand and shouldn't have, whatever the case, he should have never answered that question. He should have never confirmed that the Hoovers did anything. That's it. That's the bottom line. He need to go. It was one homie in particular that was really pushing the line that, on this decision. His vote was clear that Tiny Goofy needs to exit the yard and exit the Groove program. That he can no longer be from the set. He was unwavering in that position. He wanted him gone. Now, I think that there were other reasons involved as to why he wanted him gone. But again, I'm not going to get into any of that. I'm not going to get into who it was. But someone wanted him out of the way. And he really pushed that line. And at the end of the day, got the powers to be to agree that Tiny Goofy had transgressed against a rule and a protocol, that he had put Hoovers in harm's way. And consequently, he needed to be dealt with and exiled, kicked off the island, booted from the team. He could no longer play ball. When the decision came down, again, many people were against it and said, nah, man, hell no. We're not going to do nothing to Tiny Goofy. This is the homie. This the low. Got way more heart than y'all. What are you talking about? He didn't do nothing wrong. Nevertheless, once a decision like that is made, then that's it. Either you go along with it, or that's your ass. If the call is made and comes down and it says he's a snitch, he needs to go, and you're on the yard with him and you refuse to get him off the yard, you refuse to attack him, you're going to be attacked because he's been labeled a snitch. And now you're in the yard with a snitch and you ain't done nothing to him, you didn't get him off the yard. So everyone's hands are really tied in that sort of situation. And the word came down that Tiny Goofy is a rat that needs to go. Again, I can't stress this enough. Many people did not agree with that decision then and now. People were upset then, and people are upset even now, today, about that decision. They talk about it today. and say that he should not be there, period. In fact, I've never heard anyone talk about as much as Tiny Goofy in that sort of situation as to whether or not it was the decision was controversial then and now. It did not have unanimous support, not even close. However, the decision was made. Right or wrong, you guys let me know in the comments. What do you think? You probably don't have the whole story, really. I can't get into too much more details, but that's the gist of it. That's really the story. At the end of the day, that he got on the stand and said something, and I told you what he said. That's the crux of it. That he said something about the whole gang that people disagreed with. He didn't point anyone in particular out. He didn't say anyone has unalived anyone. He was asked, "Do the Hoover? You from Hoover, right?" Yeah. And doesn't your gang unalive people? The prosecution is asking him. Don't gangs unalive people, including your gang, including the Hoovers? Aren't they known for brutal attacks and brutal unalivings? Yeah, we are. Yeah, we do. Yeah, that's what we do. Yeah, you're damn right. You cross us. Oh, okay. And that was it. And when the decision came down, again, people were up in arms. Oh man, shit, hell no, man. This the bro. This the little bro, man. This our kid, man. Tiny Goofy's our kid. We don't want to do this because, again, it's not just about to be a DP. It's going to have to be a sticking. It's going to have to be a stabbing. This can get very ugly. And a lot of people had love for him. The same people that you are asking to do this to him. But that's how it goes. I understand that. That's how it goes in prison. That's anyone who ends up getting kicked off the yard or bust on for whatever reason, for some infraction. He was someone that someone once had love for. More than likely, the person that's doing this to him, that's attacking him, once had love for him. They were once together in the same car, chilling, working out together, eating together, etc. Now he has to turn around and put some iron in him for some transgression. Goofy has to go. That's the word. Okay, fine. Many people stood up for him, tried to get that decision turned around, said that they did not agree with that decision, that the Hoovers were making the wrong decision. We're about to lose one of our best ever. But if he did something, then it is what it is. No matter who, we're going to have to lose him then. You're going to have to stand by the rules and the protocols, no matter who the hell you are. And if you do not, then that's your ass. That's me, that's anybody. But again, many people just had that feeling that he did not do anything. So to take someone like him out for something like this, for him just being 19, and by the time he went to trial, 20, wasn't any more than 21 years old, just young, impressionable, thought he was super intelligent, trying to get out on his case, trying to outsmart people, and obviously saying what you said is not about to outsmart anyone. But throughout his testimony, that's what he was trying to do. Clearly, that was his motivation for getting on the stand to begin with, to try to outsmart the judge, the DA, the prosecution, the jury, whatever. And then these questions start being fired at him that he probably wasn't prepared for, and ended up saying something that he didn't think would be construed in a way that could end his career. Didn't have vision and didn't have forethought. But is he guilty of snitching is the question. Some said yeah, and the decision was made. Word came down to remove him from the yard by any means necessary. The word came down and people they were not happy about the word. But, they had to adhere to it. And that's what happened. They adhered to the word. And to many people's dismay, they attacked Tiny Goofy. I'm going to have to bring you that in part 2 about what happened during these attacks upon Tiny Goofy. The word came down to get Tiny Goofy off of the yard. He had been labeled a Sammy the Bull, a rat, someone who likes cheese. And he had to go. Many people, again, were up in arms about this and did not want to do a damn thing, did not agree with that. But it was bigger than them at this point, bigger than their personal feelings and their personal opinions. The call had been made. What to do? How did Tiny Goofy then end up on a PCR once the call came down? I'll get into that in part 2 about Goofy's attacks. It was more than one attack upon him because he refused to go. He refused to go to PC. He didn't feel like he had done anything wrong. Plus, he's a rider. It was about to be hell getting him off of the yard. He was not about to accept that. And he did not accept that. I'm going to tell you, it was not easy getting Tiny Goofy off the main line to a SNY yard. When the call came down, we all knew, well, here we go. The shit is about to hit the fan. And it did. The shit hit the fan. And I'll bring you that in part 2 of how Tiny Goofy ended up on the PC yard. I'll bring you that in its conclusion. I'm going to still bring you more fights that Tiny Goofy had. But as far as how he ended up on the PC yard, I'm going to finish that up tomorrow in part 2 of the attacks that he ended up experiencing and the shit that people went through to get him off of the yard. And let me say again that personally, I do not agree with it. I am one of the ones that fall on the side of Tiny Goofy should not be on the SNY yard. That's just how I feel. Now, some people may be surprised at that because I'm so staunch with the rules. I'm a stickler for the rules. I believe in them. I believe that they are there. They are in place for a reason. And that when you transgress and flout the rules, it causes chaos and violence. And therefore, everyone needs to adhere to the rules. They are in place for a reason. They save lives. These rules really save lives. So I don't believe in anyone divesting themselves of the rules and running their own program. And that's where I stand. But again, in this situation, now some people may feel like I'm biased because, man, you just got love for Tiny Goofy. Man, you just got love for him, bro. You can't see past it. I was accused of that because I was standing up for him so tough. But again, I was not the only one standing up for him. Not even close, bro. Like I'm saying, it is some people that are really pissed about what ended up happening. I'm talking about, it was, like I said, I can't get too far into it. It was some fallout over this shit, man. It wasn't just that simple, bro. Just, oh, the word came down. Because, again, the person that was really pushing it, some people felt like he had an ulterior motive as well. It almost turned on him. Instead of trying to go, let's get this motherfucker. Shit, it got deep. But I can't get too deep with it. Instead, what I'll do is bring you part 2 on the attacks that Tiny Goofy experienced. And the homies experienced attacking him, trying to get him someone willful and headstrong off of the yard. Someone very tough off of the yard. He had refused to go, just like Scanners D. And all hell eventually broke loose. I'll bring you that in part 2. Yep. In the meantime, stay free, people.